Hey everybody, Parnell Woodard from Fran Tech. Excited to bring you today Rick Mayo, the CEO of Alloy Personal Training. Rick's got an amazing story to share with you guys today. I'm real excited to have him on. So Rick, thanks for taking some time today. I certainly appreciate it. Little background, it looks like Rick, you got into business 1992 into Alloy Personal Training. So a solid 33-ish, there you go, the years.
Yes.
Um, Systems are in 2,500 plus clubs around the world, and you got into franchising. I think it was around 2018, 2019. You started to get in the franchise side, and you're already 320 plus ish
Yes.
locations.
Yes.
So, I'd love it if you could kind of take just a minute, introduce yourself, and kind of how you got into franchising as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned it already, Cornell. I mean, I think it's unique to be in small business for 3+ decades. I think for anyone. If I'm honest, I've never had a real job. I mean, I was a junior in college and was paying my way through school as a personal trainer and thought, wouldn't it be a novel idea to put four walls and a customer experience around this high-end service? At the time, at least, I'm based out of Atlanta, at least in my area, there were no facilities dedicated to just personal training, which seems crazy now with all the boutique fitness concepts and everything. But at the time, I mean, just think about there's no internet at the time, which is just a strange thing to think about now. Um, we launched the model. I figured, like I certainly can't wear sweatpants to work for the rest of my life. This is going to be short lived, right? Um, Finished my degree and then, it just evolved and sort of we hit the market at the right time. And then we landed on this very interesting business model and we became the highest revenue per square foot, club in the country. And that put me on the speaking circuit. And of course, when you're speaking in front of people, they start asking questions. They were similar questions. So we built a platform and we launched a licensing platform, which can be confusing with franchising, but just think of white labeled. And we had, again, 2,500 door fronts from India to Dubai, Tasmania, all the wacky places I can think of. I mean, everything from cricket training centers to CrossFit to aqua training centers. I mean, you name it. We were guns for hire. We would do consulting on the front end, build everything from sales systems, technology, and actually write the workouts for the athletes or the individuals if they were adults. So you name it, Parnell, all over the board. Put me on the board for Anytime Fitness for 5 years. Same thing with Gold's Gym for 7 years. So I got a nice peek under the covers at franchising, both amazing groups. Enjoyed my time there. Built some really cool things for them that I'm proud of. Nice feather in our cap. And eventually, as more boutique fitness was approaching us about building things for their franchise, we just sort of looked at each other and thought, listen, if we're going to build this for every other brand in the world, we should probably just do our own. And so we launched the franchise at the end of 2019. Of course, timing's everything, as you can imagine. Yeah, world caught on fire. We put things on hold for a bit, jumped back on it in 21. And as you mentioned earlier, we've awarded 320 locations. We have around 100 open. We're opening five or six a month. And so, yeah, we're moving. It's fun. I'm really enjoying it. But that's the 33-year overnight success story right there.
Yeah, people sometimes miss the fact that there's a lot of work that goes into these overnight successes. So,
Yes.
what excites you the most about leading a franchise organization today?
I think, it really pairs my two favorite things. I help co-teach a class at a local college for entrepreneurship, and I've only been an entrepreneur. And so, as I've gotten older, I've realized what a gift it is to wake up every morning, put your feet on the floor, and truly enjoy what you're doing. And to be able to share that with our franchisees, franchise partners, and then also like the end game of what we do in market, like fitness is a lifelong pursuit, right? And so to be able to help both entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs and realize their dreams and get out of corporate and all the things that you hear from people that are interested in investing in franchising, in addition to what the actual clubs do in market, you literally can it's visceral. You can put your hands on the good that we do in the world. And so if you can do good and get return on investment and realize how to be an entrepreneur, it's like, look, I've been doing this forever and I've never been more motivated than I am right now.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. In terms of technology, where do you see franchisors needing to improve their utilization of technology? God knows we've seen crazy innovation in the past few years, right? But where do they really need to focus on improving some of that?
I think really, as you probably can imagine, it's just friction, right? Whether that's from franchise partners or franchisees getting on board, moving through the system, being able to find things on the manual, online to tying all the softwares together seamlessly, all the things that just bring down the friction so that they can just do what they want to do, which is get return on investment and change lives in their local community. And then that passes all the way through to the consumer, right? So same thing there. Can you bring friction down and can you leverage some additional time, right, to get that back in the business? And that are, and again, of course, I know we're going to touch on AI, but that's a huge part of it. It's moving so quickly. To turn a blind eye to that would be insanity these days, because we're already implementing a lot of things that are really helping. And I can only see that becoming, a greater and greater and greater piece of our technology stack, and maybe even tying them all together a lot better. Because as you know, there's different tech stacks. They don't always speak to each other perfectly.
Yeah.
Again, it's just friction. So like, can we bring that down? Can we get these to communicate? And so, yeah, I'm really, really excited about that side of the technology for us.
Yeah. Is there anybody that you think is doing it well in the franchise space? It doesn't even have to be in the fitness side of things, but it could be a related space, health and wellness, beauty, spa, anything like that. Anybody you think doing it well?
Yeah, there are. There's a couple of operators. I can't say, in this franchise world, you're going to these consultant networks and these franchise shows. So I can't remember specifically the brands, but there are a few folks that are a little bit ahead of the curve. And it will be things like, I'll give you an example. A buddy of mine, Dan, and we both use the same FSO, which is Repum. He has a doggy grooming franchise, and he's a tech guy first, and it's really, really cool. It's tech driven. So, they have AI that recognizes your face, and then there's an algorithm on the back end that can work your dog through the process, from shampooing to drying to clipping nails to whatever the services are, right? Clipping their hair. And it will do it based on who in the building is on the schedule that's best at that particular dog function. So it's really interesting. So you're using all this technology for essentially efficiency. And what that means in the long run is you've got happier employees doing the things they're really good at. You can get more dogs through in a set amount of time. That's a greater return on investment. It's cool, right? So, it's a great sales tactic for the franchisees to say like, hey, this is our process. So yeah, I mean, he's even working on tech that where the AI will recognize your dog when you come in.
That's
So
cool.
it's really interesting stuff. And I mean, a lot of it's just like, is it have to haves? Maybe not, but it's just as the front edge of what we're going to see. And it's pretty soon going to be have to have if you're going
Yeah.
to be competitive.
Yeah. Yeah. The, AI is obviously having a massive impact on everything that we do. How do you see AI shaping franchising at your level, at the franchisor level?
Yeah, I think like we recently employed an AI specialist on a contract basis. And we're going to go department by department, and just look for efficiencies. Because as you know, there's a dance between, especially at our rapid sales rate, you have to keep up with support, but you don't want to get too overstaffed too soon. So there's a dance, right? You have to be disciplined. And so if there's ways to look for efficiencies, in that process and bring down the friction for just franchisees communicating with us, whatever those things are. I think there's a massive opportunity there. If you've seen, did you see the OpenAI came out with Operator
Yes, of course.
recently? Yeah. So it's like you can have 50 little bots acting like employees, right? Running around doing projects for you. And once you get them logged in to all of your different softwares, examples would be in our finance, we can upload a massive spreadsheet, right? And we use Gemini as well because we're Google based. So we can upload a massive spreadsheet and then run whatever queries we want. So if I want to know how well do my female franchisees that have entrepreneurial experience, how do they do versus people that don't have entrepreneurial experience? As long as those fields are there, we can mine those fields and create whatever specific data that we want. Now, can you just grab a spreadsheet, Parnell, and do the same thing? Sure. Does it take forever? Yes. And so, as you know, you just have to ask the software the right questions, but it gets better and smarter. And if you look at, you have like the large language learning models, which would be like a chat GBT, but you've got private language models as well, where you can silo just your information. And so we are beta testing things for both our consumer and franchise site. So a consumer of either can land on one of those two sites and simply ask it a question. Say they land on the consumer site. We'll keep it simple. Hey, what's the best way to lose weight? This, AI bot will comb only the information that we have. And we've got 300 podcasts that we've talked about, a bunch of things. We've got articles posted, videos. It will comb through just our info and answer that question through our lens. And so Great, right? Same thing for marketing. It's like there's ways to set appointments and get people to show up, right, to our facility. They're on fire, we have water. Okay, great. Well, how do we get them here? Well, you can add some automation there as well. And look, at the end of the day, we're personal training. So we don't want the machines to replace the human to human contact. And we're not to the point yet where you can completely tell that it's not, or you can't tell that that's a human. We're not there yet, but I think we're going to get there. And as you know, as these machines are building themselves, essentially, it's just exponential. The speed is insane. And who knows what we're going to have eventually. But I think the key is just to stay ahead of it. And whether it's at the franchisor level, looking for efficiencies in departments, communicating between, departments. Hey, let's connect our NetSuite to our CRM software, to this, to that. And once the operator gets all the logins right, and you can just say, send me this report every morning, or you can curate that data however you want. And certainly you can do it manually, but man, will this bring down a lot of friction. And, a guy like me can jump on the platform and ask it whatever I want, and it's got access to all the data. And as long as you have the right queries and you've got the data organized well, you can get answers to whatever you want, which will really help. Like, I don't know, like maybe if you have entrepreneur experience, it works against you. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe this type of franchisee is better than that one. Like, how long did it take you to get the brick and mortar open? If it took you longer than our average, did that affect your performance or not? So many things based on data fields that we can mine. It's almost endless, right? It's a little bit overwhelming, to be honest, because I know
It
there's
can be.
only a few levers that you need to pull, but I get so excited about the potential.
Yeah, yeah. The OpenAI's operator is a new kind of a new generation of these things that are called agentic AI, which are a series of agents that do all of that for you, right? And a
Right.
lot of people will tell you that about a year from now, people are going to say that because of agentic AI, we're going to look back at ChatGPT like it's a calculator, right? It's going to have that kind of an
Exactly.
effect on
Well,
us.
I mean, imagine having 50 employees out there doing big projects for you and curating data and doing research and all the things that you could ever want someone to do. And again, or you could argue that might keep reduce manpower and employment, all the thing that comes with that. But like, you can't ignore it. Like, it's not going away. And to not leverage it and understand what's coming and how to use it would be crazy. It's just going to put you way behind the eight ball. So
Yeah,
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 I'm super excited for what it can do. I'm certainly no expert, but at least I'm interested enough to somewhat understand it and be able to lean in. And I mean, look, we were talking to a tech company the other day, and they were like, "Are you doing anything with AI?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're going department by department just to see if there's any efficiencies that we're missing." And they're like, "Oh, that's a great idea." And sure, we're having to hire an outside consultant because we know it just enough to be dangerous. But let's get somebody in here who knows what they're doing as things stand. And if we stay on top of it, it'll be much easier with each evolution to sort of continue to implement it versus to start 3 years from now when it's like, man, we're so far behind the eight ball, like we don't know anything about this at all,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you can't put your head in the sand. That's what I would say.
The franchisees, right? And I've worked with a number of different franchisees over the years, and there's some franchisees that are constantly on the leading edge of things, and there's some that are very reluctant to change and don't want to change. Um, what are some of the challenges that you see in helping franchisees adopt AI?
Yeah, I think if I'm honest, to your point, you have to implement it without any effort on their part. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way towards them. I just think that while our business model and our fifth core value is to keep it simple, so it's KISS, right? It's hard to do that. It's our final lens on everything because with scale alone makes things complicated, right? And so I think if we're going to bake anything in, it just needs to be there. I don't think we are going to be able to rely on franchisees to necessarily go in and do the things. I think if we could connect it all, say maybe they come to training in the future and now AI is connecting, their QuickBooks software to their CRM to this and that. There may be some teaching around how to use the tools that are out there, say on the Gemini on the Google Suite or what have you. But I think it needs to be built. It needs to be simple to implement. It should make things easier, it shouldn't be yet another app or yet another piece of technology. It should centralize things and make things simpler. So I think to implement it with franchisees, it's almost as if you need to do all the work in the sandbox and then launch it in a way that's easy to understand, simple to implement, and it should make everything easier, not more complicated. Because as you know, like you and I would get so excited about the technology, it's fun to just bring things in,
It
right? Well,
is.
oh, we could do this, it could do that. But boy, I'll tell you, if it's not dead simple and everyone understands it, it's for naught. And so I think that has to be the final lens. And so I think most of this work will be done again in the sandbox, and we'll release it once it works.
Yeah, yeah. Any challenges with franchisees that are kind of getting out ahead of you a little bit and maybe creating some more problems than you need at this stage?
I would say not problems necessarily. We've got some very sharp franchisees, folks that like invented, Google Teams and created Angie's List. And I mean, just really, really good software folks, right? And so, of course, they look at our stuff sometimes, and to them, they have a million and one ideas. And we're always open to those. Again, we jokingly say, we don't mind if you ask, as long as you don't mind if we say no, and so that's our deal. But a lot of the things, sure, if you're coming from a place of a true expertise in that area, there's a lot of things that we're just not going to be able to implement. But I still relish and appreciate the feedback, because in there's some really gold nuggets. And even listen, if it's 10 recommendations and one of them moves the needle a little bit, it's worth it, right? As the franchise system gets bigger. So I think it hasn't caused any problems yet, because we try to keep things very simple, but we have had a lot of suggestions, and a lot of them have been very helpful. So,
Yeah,
so far, I welcome it.
yeah. You said earlier you've got about 100 locations open, you've got 320 signed. In terms of technology and onboarding, what role does technology play for streamlining some of that franchisee onboarding? It's such an important part of the process. It's so important to get them out of the gate strong. How are you using technology to help that?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a bunch of training that goes on before they ever get to like live training, because they come to corporate and we're there with them for a week, right? But they're to already have their CRM set up. They've already learned how to use the lead management software, which sits on top of it, right? They have their app set up already. They have already looked at the marketing suite. They've got their social media set up. They should be posting on that. So all of those things are already created, and they've already received training in all of those areas before they come to franchise training. Now, again, is there room in those disjointed softwares? And that's not unusual to us. So I don't mean to say that as if we're ill prepared. It's just a fact of the matter. If there's AI widgets that can pull all that together, and consolidate those things, of course, we've got a great, learning management, a great LMS. So there's a course you can take before you come to training, and it's more so for the employees of the franchisee. Hey, here's something you can give them that gives the whole history of the brand, what their role is, why it's important, even things like, where does the science of the programming come from? Why is it so important that we do it this way? So there's a lot of technology baked into pre-training for our franchisees, so that when they show up, we can really just sell the vision and practice the steps that have to happen to make it come to life. But yeah, all the software training is pre-live training for us already.
Yeah. Have you seen any tools, specific tools that you feel like have really reduced ramp up time for new franchisees?
No, not that I can think of off the top of my head. Nothing that I've seen. Again, like we're right, I think, on the front edge of being able to do that. But right now, you still got to do the thing. You have to take the course. You have to do your appointment with the CRM company, and yeah, those are some individual appointments. They're all baked into the training time. The expectation is there, but I haven't seen anything as of yet. I feel like we do a pretty good job. And you think about communicating from department to department. So you got your real estate and real estate construction, and they have to transition. As you know, there's functions going on there that affect business functions under beneath that line, and that communication has to be clear. And then they transition to the team that's going to take them from training, and now they're in their pre-sale. There's a team for that, and they transition out of pre-sale. There's a team that's going to coach them long term, and so those transitions from one team to the other, I feel like we do a pretty good job of that. But we'll be looking even at technological solutions for moving them through that pipeline that'll make it easier for them as well.
Yeah, yeah. Unclogging. I talk a lot with folks
It's a
about
great term.
unclogging some of the stuff that's in the pipeline.
I love it.
On the client experience side, talk to me about how you're using technology to enhance that experience at the franchise locations.
Yeah, so our model's a bit unique. We only need 130 to 150 people to be successful, and one of our claims is we have a very high retention rate. So if you look at, like, I don't know, we're probably 5 times the industry average on retention. Part of it's just because we don't have a whole lot of people right in there. So I would say that technology is important, but it's not as important. So I'll give you an example though. Like, we have an app partner. And instead of building our own app, which you just get run over by every other fitness app in the world if you do so, it makes more sense for us to partner with an app company so we will get the benefits of all of their advancements that they're making. And then we paid some dev costs to silo out some Alloy only functions, and it's all white labeled, right? Well, they're working on some really neat behavioral change things, some AI that can predictively give you, menus based on what you normally like to eat if you can log your food. And so our vendors, I think, are doing a great job of that. Our marketing companies that are approved vendors, they all have AI, communication with customers to get them to a person, a real person on a phone call, which is, personal training. Eventually, they're going to want something personal, right? No pun intended. But there, a lot of our vendors are using those things currently, and we try to partner with folks who have those things in place already. Because again, it just brings down friction, and it's just less work for the franchisees.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything standout tools or platforms you feel like have had a major impact on that on customer retention or engagement? Anything that you've used?
Yeah, I would say our consumer facing app has been really good. So not only does it have functions, we do something unique where we train 6 customers with one coach. And so it sounds like it wouldn't be personal training. And we joke about the word class, we call it the C word. It's like a dirty word in our organization. Can't say that because it's still personal training, but we've got really cool tools, coach facing. Imagine come in, 6 tiles pop up on the iPad based on the schedule. Here's Parnell, here's his level of fitness, here's his goals and his injuries, and then you toggle over and the algorithm just connects you to the program that you need to do, right? That's super useful because that scales for the whole franchise. They can go hire, we are big fans of hire the athlete, train the skill. Hire the athlete is they look the part, they're fun to be around, they don't have to have 10 letters behind their name and know how to program. We're going to handle all that corporately, and there's a process to get them from the door to the right program, and there's ways for them to ascend over time. So that app is huge. Plus, it has a consumer facing side. So if you've got someone who needs to get 5,000 steps a day, it pulls in wearables and it can track all of that. You want to track your food? Great. It grabs the library from MyFitnessPal, which is the largest, a library of like food recording. You can take pictures of your food if you want, right? You can rate your effort level on your workouts. There's all of these cool tools. And again, that's the vendor I mentioned before. We continue to get all their advancements. I would say that's probably the most relevant tool to delivering the thing that we do.
Yeah, yeah. Um, we talked a little bit earlier about analytics and being able to ask, you know, human-based questions of some of the data and the analytics. But are there any other ways that you're using analytics to make better business decisions at the franchisor level? Not so much the Z level, but at the Zor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, there's a million and one ways, that we're doing that. So, I mentioned like we work with an FSO, and it's a pretty lengthy and difficult sales process, which I like because our closing rate when we do host a discovery day live, which is our decision day, whatever you want to call it, and our close rate there's like 90%. So our FSO does a great job of getting people through that pipeline, right? And getting them putting good candidates in front of us. In those processes, in our interaction with them, there is software where we can map along the pipeline. So we can see how many people are in brand introduction, how many people are in unit economics, how many people are in validation, right? And we all have access to that. So that's a pretty standard fare, I think, as table stakes for software. But it's nice for everybody to be a jump in there and be like, let's say that we had, because the end of 24 was a little weird, as an election year and everyone slowed down a little bit. So it was really nice to see like, well, where are we having problems? Like which part of the pipeline needs to improve? Is it unit economics? Are we losing them in validate? Like where are we missing? And it turns out it was just top of the funnel leads, which just means overall interest was weird because it was an election year and people were nervous. And of course, January pops off and we awarded 20 licenses in January. So back on it, but it's still fun to look at the data. So I think we use monday.com for that. We also use that internally so that we can keep track of any projects. So when we have construction and real estate, people get assigned to what we call a studio coordinator. And even if they're using a third party like a Buildem or something to be their project management, we're still on top of it and we're meeting with them every couple of weeks. And we're also using Monday to communicate with customers. And that's where they can upload their leases and just all the things, right? So again, is it a bit fragmented? Sure, because then once Monday's over, once your project's over, you're out of Monday and you're on to, the CRM that runs the actual brick and mortar business. So would I like to tie those together more seamlessly? But yeah, those are two critical ones right now.
Yeah. In terms of some metrics, are there certain metrics you think franchisors should be focusing on? We talked about those funnel metrics right there earlier, but anything else?
I really think it boils down to franchisee performance. That's it. Like if I had to say, like, okay, again, I've been around franchising a while, but now having been in it for 4 years, it's like, what's the secret to success? Just have, successful franchisees. That is it. Takes care of sales, takes care of validation, takes care of, a third of our franchises awarded, I think it was Q3 of last year. No, half of our franchises awarded Q3 of last year were all existing franchisees coming back to buy more. I
Nice,
love that, right?
nice.
So to me, that takes care of everything. That means we're doing a good job. We're putting a good product in market. We're teaching them how to do it well, and they can actually execute on it when they're in fact not fitness people. They're semi-absentee. They've got 3 locations and they're keeping their corporate gig until this income can replace that. So yeah, I mean, that's a lengthy answer, but I hope that helps.
No, and so to transition that a little bit, so prospective franchisees or new franchisees, what do you tell them to focus on in terms of metric?
Yeah, so we have high level KPIs for I mean, look, KPIs for us are the same. Leads to the pipelines that we talked about, close. Got it, right? Award a franchise or not. Franchisees at their level, it's a very simple business model. It's like, how many leads did you get? Did you get them to book to come in? Did they show? Did you convince them that you have the solution to their problem? And then retention. Now, there's other things to be measured. We even measure behaviors, like leading KPI behaviors that'll lead to the lagging numbers that our owners, our franchise partners want. But at the end of the day, it's lead, book, show, close, retention. And all the customer service techniques and all the AI and all the things we bake in are literally just to look at, do we need do we need new clients? And then like, can we take care of the flock and put our finger in the dike over here? And if we could do both of those things, again, you can easily get to 130, 150 people.
Yeah, yeah. With being a relatively new in terms of at years franchise, how do you ensure that the franchisees are actually using the CRM and some of the other tools?
They really can't get away from it. So when you look at the leads as an example, so when we have a pre-sale, there's an expected spend on digital, and then there's a grassroots playbook for community, right? And so if your website and all of your meta, your Instagram and Facebook and wherever we're advertising, it's not tied to the lead management software. The volume of leads would be daunting if you're trying to track it on a spreadsheet or whatnot. Plus, there's some AI and automation baked in there, right? So they really can't get away from it because it is the tool. It has a mobile app, so you can sit at home and see what the leads are looking like. And there's so many great things available that it it is the basic function of the business. So we have had no trouble with them not using it because it'd be impossible to run the business without it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Moving to security and cybersecurity, obviously a big deal. Um, you've got a lot of moving parts in a franchise system. How do you approach cybersecurity specifically across all those locations?
Yeah, for us, I mean, it's really all of our vendors. So it's just simple Wi-Fi with a firewall. And then beyond that, every single one of whether it be the training app or the CRM or all the things that we have, they have their own firewalls and protections on their end, right? So we really don't have to worry about it too much. We don't have any proprietary software that's not protected of their own. And so we just make sure that whatever partners we have, they're protected. And typically that means like we're working with the biggest CRM in the fitness industry. It's a $3.5 billion company. They have a tons of safeguards in place, right? And so doing that alone takes care of it. So we don't have to worry about any additional, again, security safeguards, what have you. If you have basic Wi-Fi and you set up a firewall in your facility and you're simply accessing these different platforms. Same thing with the Google Suite. There's some things put in place by us for security for that, so their emails aren't getting hacked, things like that. But those are all very basic, and every major company that's offering any of those type of services already has that stuff built in. Sometimes you have to pay a little extra for it, but it's worth it.
Yeah. As you've grown, have you run into any issues where you faced some security threats or challenges that required you to change some of your technology?
Thankfully not, and I'm knocking on wood, but absolutely not.
That's a good
Why
thing.
would you ask me that? No, I'm
That's a
teasing.
good
It's
thing.
not.
Gotcha. All right. So we'll do a few minutes of just rapid fire questions. Number one, what's the best business book you've read recently?
The Road Less Stupid.
The Road Less Stupid. I haven't
It
read
is
that
an
one.
amazing, I love it. It fits my personality so well. And it is an amazing book. I cannot think of the author off the top of my head, but it's a daily read. I mean, you
Huh.
can, and you don't have to read it sequentially. You can just open it to a chapter It's a concept. It tells you how to think about it. There's a little thinking time after, and it's an amazing book. So if you just want something to digest on a daily basis as part of a morning routine, I
Cool.
couldn't recommend it high enough.
Cool. If you weren't in franchising, what would you be doing?
I think I'd still be in the fitness space. I just enjoy small business. So I would, I mean, our model makes a good ownership model. So we could have certainly just expanded corporately. So if I wasn't in franchising, I would just own a bunch of corporate locations.
Gotcha. What's one technology tool you can't live without?
Ooh, man, gosh, there's so many now, right? I mean, it's certainly not social media. I would love to say that. Like, I mean, it might be, but it shouldn't be. I would say Slack, just because everybody's communicating on Slack.
Yeah, yeah. Favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Motorcycle ride.
Motorcycle. If you could have lunch with any entrepreneur or business leader, who would it be and why?
It's so tough in this political climate, but I would say Elon Musk, and I want to tell you why. He had a great quote. He said that being an entrepreneur is like eating glass while staring into the abyss, and being a founder. And the guy asked him what he meant. And he said, well, the staring into the abyss is like the percentage chance that it's going to work, even in franchising, right? Like as a franchisor, we're royalty sufficient to get from startup to royalty sufficient, all self-funded, and get all the, it's hard to do. To get 100 open, you're in the top 2% of brick and mortar franchises. It's like, to assume that you're going to be that 2%, you can have all the beliefs you want, but the math is against you. So you're staring into the abyss every day, hoping that shit works out. And the eating glass is when you're the head of the company, you're only going to get the worst problems elevated to you because your team's going to solve all the other stuff. So I think in Elon Musk, and pardon my French, I think he said the shittest problems are going to get to you. So that's the part where you're eating glass because you're basically working on things that you don't want to work on and solving problems that are very difficult to solve. And I just thought it was a brilliant quote. Say what you want about him politically, it's all charged these days, but I just think he's a fascinating guy.
Yeah, interesting quote. I hadn't heard that one. So, where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your brand?
You can go two places. Alloypersonaltraining.com is the consumer site, and that can link you to the franchise site, or alloyfranchise.com. That's all the franchise information, and it will link you to the consumer site if you want.
Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, Rick Mayo, CEO of Alloy Personal Training. Thanks so much, Rick, for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll look forward to catching up a little bit down the road. Folks, Parnell Woodard from Frantech. We will see you next time.